I'm Jim Collison and live from our virtual studios around the world, or at least here in the state of Nebraska today. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on August 28th, 2020. Called to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you join us in our chat room. There's actually just a link right above me there. You can click on that, take you to the YouTube page, and sign in with your Google account and join us in the chat. You can ask your questions live, and we'll be watching for those. If you're watching after the fact, or you have any questions on anything, you can just send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, just go ahead and subscribe down there. That way you get notified whenever we publish anything new. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, and that's okay too, head out to any podcast app, either iPhone or Android. Just search Gallup Webcasts and subscribe to us there, and you'll get those automatically each and every time we put them out. Maria Flores and Ronny Miller are our guests today. Maria joined the Gallup Federal Credit Union team back in January of 2016, and Maria, I remember that day, as a member services representative, and now also assists our financial advisor with Guide Rock Capital Management. There, we're going to find out a little bit more about her job here in just a second. And Ronny started with Gallup back in 1996 as a consumer interviewer. I think he was 7 at the time, while working towards a degree in finance from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. His work with the credit union began immediately after graduating in 99. He's now responsible for ensuring that the credit union lives out its mission to its members, providing a safe and secure financial institution that leads a journey towards thriving financial well-being. Ronny, Maria, welcome to Called to Coach.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Good to have both of you. Ronny, in your title there, you know, we talk about this idea of thriving towards financial well-being as an organization. We kind of use the credit union as a vehicle for that. How great it is to be part of an organization that lives that mission and purpose out. Ronny, let's get a little bit more. You kind of run the place, so just give us a little. What's your day look like in the role that you have there at Gallup?
Sure. Yeah, it is a very unique situation, and we're very fortunate to have a financial institution, albeit in this scenario, a credit union, so ingrained with our culture at Gallup, helping to lead that charge. My normal day is working with a great team that includes Maria and 4 other individuals that really, they know, each person knows that their number one job is serving members, the majority of which are Gallup associates and their family members. And to that end, not only including great service, but also service that we know that they can count on, that they know is in their best interests. This is why we incorporate that thriving financial well-being language into our mission, is because it requires that type of advice. So my job day to day is managing this great team, and then also working directly with members and clients around, you name the financial topic, across the board. Yeah,
no, that's great. And you do a great job of it, by the way. So
thank you.
Thanks for all the work you do. Maria, same question to you. What's your, what do we pay you to do there at Gallup?
Member service representative. So all member related services. So opening up accounts, account maintenance, just serving all of our members via email, phone, walking traffic. And again, like Ronny said, it's mainly Gallup associates and their family members, and try to help them succeed financially and, in the best way possible.
And that's important in the sense when we think about thriving financially, we spent some time with Ryan Wolf last week talking about physical well-being and some things that we can do and why that's important. And we know on a fundamental basis that it's hard to thrive when you're suffering. And if you're suffering in any one of these 5 areas of well-being, it can have a major impact on your overall well-being. And so today we kind of want to spend some time thinking through that. I'm going to throw a link in the chat room. We'll include that in the show notes as well for anybody listening to the podcast if you want to go out to it. We've spent some time and we've got some written material on this, but today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it. Maria, let me start with you. We know, and we're going to kind of cover 3 things that can help people with their financial well-being, right? The goal is today is, as we speak with coaches who are working with people, coaches have the opportunity because they see people in these contexts, right? It's hard to coach someone if they're suffering financially. They're just distracted, right? We see this all the time. And so today we want to talk a little bit about giving some pointers, some stuff we've learned, stuff we see in our data. And of course, really it's about finding this peace of mind, right? If you're thinking about your finances all the time, it's hard to be at your best when you're thinking about your finances all the time. So let's give a few tips. And I think this very first one is the most important. And I do feel like we've laid these out in a little bit of a hierarchy. It's kind of tough if this isn't right. So as we think about helping individuals with their finances and financial well-being, what's kind of a great first step of something that coaches could help people look at?
Make an emergency fund account, right? Build that savings account up at least up to $1,000, right? Make that first step, that first goal, to maybe, again, set up that savings account. And I help members with this, Jim, all the time, to set up automatic transfers into this savings account, this emergency savings account, so that it's automatic. It's just going to start to build up. So once they have the $1,000 available, well, then it's there. Then what's the next step, right? Build a little bit more. And I'm sure, Ronny, you can add a little bit more into it. But we see it all the time, and we always encourage our members, our Gallup associates, to build up this emergency fund account to face crisis or face anything unexpected, right? You have this car repair that it's really came out of the nowhere. Well, then you have this emergency fund account, and it's continuing to build because those automatic transfers are continuing to happen every time. But you do have to make it a priority, right? It is a priority. You're going to make it happen. So make it automatic to help you build it up and have it there and continue to grow it.
Yeah. Maria, we say $1,000, and that's kind of US centric in our thinking with that, right? What kind of advice, and we have offices all around the world. What kind of advice do we give? I mean, certainly every country has different financial pressures, and is that the same? Do we give the same advice, or is that a little bit different as we think about other economies around the world?
So I would say it would depend on each individual, right? You probably want to build up at least 6 months of your income, right? If you lose a job, you have 6 months of your income build up on that emergency fund. So it would depend on everybody, but we advise $1,000 is just the start. Yeah. Because if you think about it, $1,000, how long is it going to cover you for, right? This is more, again, for an emergency that's not too big, but you have some money in there. So Ronny, you can probably touch a little bit more into that.
Yeah, Ronny, you want to add to that?
Yeah, whatever amount would cover your typical minor emergency. And Maria, you said this perfectly, but that car repair, that medical expense, that airplane ticket that you have to buy because you don't have a choice. Those minor emergencies, $1,000 will cover it. So translating that into your domestic currency would be different each place, but you probably have a good idea how much that is. And I only would add one other piece, which was you started by saying, it's hard to thrive if you're suffering. And every time I've met with an individual who's suffering, it feels like for the visual learners of the group that they have this kind of real narrow focus. They can't really see past right here and now. And I feel like having that emergency fund of $1,000 just helps people take a little bit of a deep breath. It really helps that increase my hope. I actually have $1,000 in case I blow a tire, Yeah,
it's more than just the money, right? I mean, there's some peace of mind, which again goes back to this idea of suffering versus thriving, where right. I don't worry about, okay, if something does happen, I do have something to set back on. We're going to talk about debt consolidation here in just a second, but beyond, this is why I think this is an important first step in a lot of ways of getting that, because it's not just about having the money or having the resources. It's kind of about having that peace of mind, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about for oftentimes for individuals, this is hard. This is a hard first step for a lot of people. As we think about resiliency and CliftonStrengths, and we think about using some of these talent tendencies that we have, Maria, as we help people do this, how can we kind of use those, our inherent talent, or these themes, that we say, as an example, you know, I'm a maximizer, so anything worth doing is worth overdoing for me. And so I always challenge myself to do big, audacious things with like savings, you know, turn the savings plan into some kind of crazy, unachievable thing, because that's what I do. That's one idea. What else have you seen, or how else can we help people maybe lean into this with their strengths?
Well, I want to say that every individual, all 34 themes, have the potential to save money and take charge of their finances. But as we see, I'm just going to give you a quick example. I have learner number 1. And when I started to work for the credit union for Gallup back in 2016, I've never heard of a budget or a spending plan. So Ronnie gave me this opportunity to join a financial well-being class. And this is the first step, right? Build up that emergency fund account. So as I was learning about this, I got super excited. And then I brought it home to my husband and said, oh my gosh, I learned about the emergency fund account. Then I also learned about making a financial plan, a budget, right? So how can we do this? Like, let's do this, right? So as I was teaching him, he has analytical number 1. He was asking me tons of questions like, okay, what are we saving for? I mean, so many questions, like be specific. How much are you spending? So I thought, oh my gosh, maybe this is not such a good idea, because now we're going to really sit down and analyze where my money is going. And I want to say I was a really good saver before. Even I consider myself that I didn't spend that much money, but I wasn't really telling where my money was going. I wasn't really focusing on that emergency fund account. I was saving. Yes, we did have that savings, but we didn't have a name on that savings. So we started to be a little bit more intentional about it, right? What are we going to do? Okay, this is going to be my emergency fund account. I'm going to set up these automatic transfers. We're just going to make them happen and let that account continue to grow. We're not going to touch it at all. And it has made a huge impact in our life. But I've seen it in other Gallup associates, other members, even, you know, in my history with banking, I've seen how it changes people, right? But you have to be intentional about it. Even if you're suffering, there are other things that you can cut so that your money still comes into this emergency fund account, because one day you're going to need it. And if you don't, great, then it'll be there for your retirement when you retire for vacation or something else.
No, I think that's good advice and a good example, Ronnie. As you think of, you've worked with thousands of Gallup employees literally through this. As we think about throwing your themes at getting this done, anything you've seen, or just some brief ideas as we kind of think about how to really lean into this?
Yeah, I think Maria picked a great one with that spending plan. I think everybody has a strength in their top 5 that allows them to be a little bit analytical, or a little bit of a ranger, to kind of be balancing those balls in the air and moving this bucket funds in this bucket over to this bucket. Everybody has a strength that they can lean on to help them make that process good. My one piece of advice is make it as simple as it needs to be, right? Don't overcomplicate unless that's a strength of yours, to keep things complicated, right? So as simple as possible, and just so it's something that you can actually do.
What, Ronnie, why is it important? You know, we've listed these in order in some steps. Why is getting that first before some folks come in, they've got a debt, right? That's burdening them. And you kind of start thinking like, I should get rid of that debt first. Talk a little bit about that, why that peace of mind is so important, and to get that emergency savings fund is important to begin with.
Yeah. Having that minimum emergency fund in place before you start tackling your debt is critical. And it's because having an emergency fund in place is the only thing that will stop you from acquiring new debt. And just to put yourself in this position, Jim, you come up with this great plan, very affordable. You know exactly how much you need to put toward your debt, exactly how long it will take to pay it off. Let's say it takes you 24 months and you're excited about this plan. You're energized about it, and you are 2 months into your plan with no emergency fund, and you have that car repair. You insert your emergency here. So what do you have to do? You immediately have to deviate from your plan to take care of this emergency, you become frustrated and you quit. I love that you brought up Ryan Wolf earlier, because he has exactly the same story when it comes to physical well-being. People that get on this new workout plan and they're energized about it, they're hitting it every day, and suddenly they pull a muscle and they can't work out for 2 weeks. They step on the scale and they put on 2 pounds or 5 pounds or whatever, and they get frustrated. And many times that's where they stop. The emergency fund helps people, helps them keep them on their plan that they're energized about. And so they don't have to deviate from it completely. They only have to deviate from it to replace their $1,000. And that's can be done quickly. So that's why I think it's so important that these are done in that order.
Yeah. And Lisa makes a good comment in the chat room. And we haven't used this word yet, but having that provides stability, right? It creates this stableness in it. And there's different ways. We won't spend a lot of time. There's a lot of different ways of thinking through debt consolidation when we think of a snowball, or, the way you approach that. Maybe you take the big ones first. There is a psychological, we know there is kind of a psychological difference of starting small. Talk through that plan, starting small and getting big. I think that, what do we call that? A snowball?
Yeah.
Ronnie?
Yeah, when we're there's really two approaches that we primarily focus on when it comes to paying off debt: is debt snowball and debt consolidation. And the debt snowball idea is very intriguing to me, because it does, not only does it work in reality, but the reasons it works is because it plays on our own human nature. In that we list all of our debts from the smallest debt, maybe you got $100 on a small department store card of some kind, all the way up to our largest debt. We're talking about consumer debts, typically credit card debt. And we list those payments smallest to largest, minimum payments across each one. And then based on what Maria's great budgeting spending plan tool has created, you can figure out how much can I put toward the smallest debt extra. And you start that plan, paying minimums on everything and extra on the smallest debt. And then once that smallest debt is paid off, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 2 months, we roll that payment like a snowball rolling down the hill to the next smallest debt, and so on and so forth. And by the time, as you continue to roll that payment toward the next debt, that snowball becomes bigger and bigger, and it ends up paying things off faster. You go from having 7 debts to 4, and from 4 to 3, and now you're really gaining momentum. And that part of it is what gets people excited and keeps them on the plan. Similarly with physical well-being, where you lose some pounds and this working out thing is working, and you hit a plateau and then you lose some more, and it keeps you excited. So that's why the debt snowball piece works.
Yeah. Well, I think it plays to our strengths too, in some regards, right? And you mentioned too, there may be some folks who are very analytical and they want to line them all up and they want to do it by interest rate, or they want to do right. I think it's one of those areas where coaches don't discourage. If somebody starts going on a plan that's going to get them there, it doesn't have to be this one. If it's one that works for them, leaning into analytics or leaning into being aggressive with it, or whatever, right? Spend some time thinking about, okay, how do you think, if they ask for advice, there's certainly ways to do that. Similar, Maria, when we think about, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, when we think about building on that hope, and we think about budgeting, what kind of advice does we think about coaches in helping people to start budgets? Because, and I think some people, again, based on your strengths, that you might need a big complicated, that's the way it was for me for a while. I had a big complicated budget. Now mine is just streamlined and as simple as it can be. How do you help people get started with that process of getting a budget started?
So we normally tell people to start in September, but you can start at any time. I didn't start in September. I started in January, as soon as I took that financial well-being class, and start telling your money where it needs to go. Don't let your money tell you where it's going. That's what I was doing. Like I told you before, I knew I was a big saver, but I just didn't know where my money was going. My husband and I have 4 kids, and I handle all of the kids' expenses, daycare, all of that. So my money I never really had a lot of extra money to save, but whatever I had extra, I would give to my husband, because he then was having our just their savings account, not emergency savings at the time, but just their savings account. He was doing all of that. And then when we took time to sit down, and then I looked at all of my expenses, and then I had this Prime membership that I only use in December to order Christmas gifts. Then my husband goes like, "Do you really use this service?" "Oh, no, I guess we can cut that one out, right?" What are our goals, right? Do we want to pay our mortgage? We have a 15-year mortgage, but we want to pay it in 10 years. What are we going to do to get there? What can we cut on, right? Like, we have all this money, we know where it's going. And it's impressive. You will find a lot of places where you're like, oh, maybe I don't go to Starbucks every morning. And that will save me so much money just on a month. Or just a lot of those free trials that you sign up for and forgot about. But because you're not really looking at your account history or going through your budget every month, you don't realize that you have those. So taking control of your finances, viewing your account history all the time, and telling your money where it needs to go, it's the most important, I think, when it comes to budgeting.
Maria, your top 5: learner, harmony, responsibility, includer, and communication. By the way, beautiful communication happening right here. So I appreciate that. When you think about the budgeting process in your own top 5, what do you lean into? I mean, what has been helpful to you in this budgeting? Because you haven't done this your whole life, right? This was something new.
Started
right?
5 years ago.
No, right on. It's not something, I think some people think budgets just you're born with them, and you're not, right? So as you think about your themes, what do you lean into? What do you use to make budgeting successful for you?
So I want to say learner, because I still want to learn about, okay, what else can we save on? But includer is an important one, because my husband has includer. No, he has harmony on number 2, same as me. So we always both, finances is kind of it's a hard topic, because when you say, okay, I got to cut all of these costs, my Starbucks coffee every morning, that's going to hurt a little, right? My going out for dinner every week, it's going to hurt a little. Then you have to have some type of agreement between husband and wife, or whoever is doing the budgeting, so that you come to this agreement and the budgeting actually sounds good, right? We're going to make this happen. I also have achiever. So we write it down, check mark, check mark, check mark. Those check marks are super great for me. I just love to do that every time. I write everything down, and then by the time we know, okay, we paid off this amount, check mark. We saved for our kids this amount, check mark. We write down all of our goals, and it is a little bit complicated because my husband has analytical, but he takes care of all the writing, all the doing, and I take care of those check marks because we make it happen. But not just me. I mean, I've seen it in other Gallup associates, and again, with different strengths. And for me, when they pay off a loan, congratulations, right? I'm pretty sure this is a big thing on your budget. And I try to bring it up intentionally, because if they don't have a budget, maybe they'll think about, sitting down and building up one, so that next time, the next debt that they pay off, it's going to be another check mark, another congratulations, happy place, right?
Maria, I wish you could see the smile in your eyes when you said check mark. Like that was a perfect indication for you, right? Of like, that's a motivating factor. I like checking those things off. That was super, super awesome. And I think Coach is a great indication as you're talking with people about this area. And budgets are hard. Money is hard. Look for those moments when they smile with their eyes. They get excited with their eyes, and we're on to something here. Like I would say, Maria, for you, I bet there's some great opportunities if you were in a debt snowball to celebrate every single time. Right. And so if you and I were working together on that, I'd be able to kind of use that to your favor and say, let's throw a party every time we do this. Every time we complete something. Ronny, your top 5: positivity, maximizer, individualization, arranger, and developer. You come at this maybe a little bit different. And when we think about how you celebrate budget victories, or how you guys do budgets, how do you lean into it?
Yeah, For me, it's a goal accomplishment. I think maybe that's the maximizer, but I've made a connection in my mind between managing a budget well and achieving goals, successfully achieving goals, and in some cases achieving those goals faster, whether it's debt payoff, whether it's funding a college fund, saving for something that's important, a major purchase of some kind. So for me, I feel like Maximizer helps me go, okay, what else could I do to get there a little bit quicker? Or how could I rearrange what my priorities are to make a bigger impact on those goals? And so I am not like most people that I know. I wasn't born with a general ledger in my hand doing budgets, and nor do I still don't enjoy the daily process of it. But the one tip that I would give people that are trying to start is writing down, take less than 5 minutes a day to categorize the few expenses that you had the day before. It's really not that much time. You can do it in a matter of, in some cases, 60 seconds. Log in. Oh, I had 2 expenses and they're in this category. You've just started a spending plan. You get really good at that by spending 2, 3, 4 minutes a day. Pretty soon you have a great idea where your money's going, and it starts to feel really good. You really start to go, I have more control over this. Not only I have peace of mind, but that builds my hope that I can actually control it.
Yeah, no, I love that approach, particularly because I think this is an area where who we are really can make a difference in understanding that when folks begin to understand their natural tendencies. And then like budgeting is one of those really raw exercises that brings out the worst in all of us, right?
It can.
And we begin, it really can. And we can begin to see for coaches, managers, individuals, like, how do I make this the best of me? I alluded to this earlier, that I had this big complicated, I use Microsoft Money for the first 15 years of being married. I had this gigantically complicated budget. I kind of liked it, but over the years I changed a little bit and it got so cumbersome. I started regretting it. I started getting mad about it, right? It was a conflict in my marriage. You know, it was one of those kinds you think, oh, a great budget would be awesome. No, it wasn't, right? It wasn't working. And I actually went a couple of years without one. I just said, I'm just not going to do it. No, that doesn't work either, right? So I compromised and came back to a very simple 6-month running. And so it runs out to 6 months. That's about as far as I can predict. It shows me a positive or negative balanced cash flow and then I have automatic, I do automatic things. Like that's another, by the way, it's another thing maybe we should talk about here in a second, but I have automatic things that happen that I don't have to think about, right? It's taken all the complexity out of it. Maria, you mentioned this. I do automatic savings. I do automatic retirement savings. We'll mention that here just a second. But for me, it was a change leaning into making, that arranger loved the complicated. I knew every penny. I balanced it every Saturday kind of thing. But that wasn't necessarily good for the partnership I had going on here. I needed to streamline it, make it more simple. I kind of leaned in with Achiever or with an activator type deal. Let's just get this thing done. Let's just go to it. I go to it every couple days. I don't make a crazy deal about it. Ronnie, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, you alluded to it being it bringing out the worst in us, and I think especially any married couple is going to definitely understand this. The reason it can bring out the worst in us is because it forces us to look at our money and decide where our priorities are. And when 2 people do that and their priorities are obviously different, it causes friction. Yeah. And it causes us to talk about it. And that's hard. Yeah. Especially when, I'll just throw myself out there and say, man, one of my priorities is golf. That's not a great thing in a partnership, right? It's clearly it is based on what my checking account is telling me. And so that's one of the reasons it's hard. But I also think that's one of the reasons it's great, because it forces those conversations and and you learn how to compromise and deal with that.
Yeah. And I think for Sarah and I, my wife, we began 15 years ago. She took CliftonStrengths and she has very, very high responsibility and belief. Maria, you have responsibility as well. Understanding that I don't. So understanding I needed to play to her responsibility and belief, that this needed to have a purpose. Our spending needed to have a purpose, and it needed to be kind of regular and predictable was really, really important to her. So not just about me. Maria, I heard you say this in the context of your relationship as well, that having that conversation or talking about it with your partner, but in the context of those themes, was equally important. Understanding the needs, right? Understanding what you needed in it. Anything else you want to add? Does that spark anything for you in your current situation?
So I do want to add just one thing. So when I started to work for Gallup, I also had my coaching session with Graciela back in 2016. And she also mentioned my husband. And she said, has your husband taken the Strengths Finder yet? And I said, no, but because I got so excited about it, I said, okay, well, here I go. I go home like the third day I started working for Gallup. Hey, you need to take this. And he was like, no, I don't. He was thinking about it like, I don't know that I believe in that. But of course, we get his results and we're like, this is totally you, right? So it's kind of an advice for you coaches out there, because when you're bringing up this conversation too about financial well-being, it is important to know your partner's strengths as well, right? To make sure that you come to an agreement and things like that. But even just by mentioning financial well-being on your coaches' conversations, it's super important, because it's going to have an impact on those individuals, right? They're going to think, okay, I'm discovering all of these strengths, all of these amazing things about myself, also about career, social, community, financial well-being. And this is super important. What am I going to do with my strengths to be intentional about saving money, about going on vacation, about planning for retirement, for any of that? If you just bring up the financial well-being part on your conversations, it's going to make an impact. They're super excited about their discovery when they're talking to you guys. Like I immediately took action and was like, you need to take this. I need to know what your strengths are so that we can work on our physical, social, all of those things that make a huge impact in our lives. And it's really what makes us happy. So just kind of, that was my only thing that I wanted to add in there.
Yeah.
But
no, I think it's good. Ronnie, anything else you want to add before we move on?
I think she did a great job covering that. So yeah, I'm good.
I want to think then now about the future. So you've kind of handled the present. We're thinking about a budget. Now we're looking ahead, right? And the looking ahead for some people can be just as stressful, just as demotivating, right? Just as anxiety inducing as the current for some folks, what's going on for them currently. So Ronnie, as we think about the future, then looking at, and that doesn't mean only people who have strategic or futuristic can do this, right? We all have themes that can play into this, but what are a few, and Maria, then we'll come to you. What are a few things that we think out ahead? We've alluded to some of them already, but how do we reduce stress by looking ahead to the future? What are some things that we can do to kind of set us up financially to make sure those are being taken care of too?
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to really reducing unnecessary stress is establishing default systems. I'm pulling that directly out of the Wellbeing book. One of the financial recommendations, establishing default systems. It seems simple, but there's lots of ways to do that. We've talked about a lot of them without actually saying that, but automating contributions to retirement accounts, automating bill payments, direct debit, just automate as many things as you can, and then check in with them every now and then. And that by itself is way less stressful. So I think that establishing default systems wherever it makes sense for you goes a long way toward reducing stress, and putting things on autopilot. And then the one other thing that I would mention in this area is that a lot of times people have a hard time saving because they seem so disconnected from what they're saving for. even if it's, well, I'll never be able enough to save enough to buy a boat, or I'll never save enough to retire, that's so far off in the distance. Even if you're 44 years old, like I am, it's retirement's an obscure thing way out in the future. And if that's the case for you, then let's set up the milestones, right? If getting to $5,000 in your boat fund or retirement fund, or 10,000 or 100,000, set those milestones up and celebrate them along the way. I feel like that is a piece that helps keep people motivated toward that big audacious goal, whether it's 2 years down the line or 30 years down the line.
I love that. Justin says in the chat room, he says, looking ahead, the never land for some people. And Ronny just kind of gave a clue. Maybe it's a whole bunch of milestones that you put in front of them that have that same end, but we're still talking about, hey, where's your retirement fund at the end of the year? Or where is your savings? Maria, you'd mentioned, $1,000 or from that emergency fund. And I think the goal, 3 to 6 months of income, right? The ultimate goal. We still might need to do more savings, right? We may need to have some disposable cash, some resources available. What's that look like this month and next month for some folks? Maria, you do this all the time. You help people set up these kinds of things, right? To get them moving forward. What have you seen? Like, if you were to think about some success stories of folks that you've helped, you mentioned somebody paying off the debt. Have you also seen that on the savings side? What kind of success have you seen there, and why?
Absolutely. Vacation accounts. So we did talk about, okay, we have to save for emergencies, but what about having fun, making memories, right? We absolutely encourage people to do that too. It's not just about saving and staying in your budget. Yes, but you also want to build that savings account, Christmas account, so you're not stressed, during the holidays, or using a credit card with high interest. Building up those Christmas accounts, vacation accounts, and just watching people going to Hawaii, going to Cancun, and enjoying their vacation, and knowing that they had that money on that vacation account. When they come back, they're not going to be stressed about paying a loan or paying on a credit card or any of that, because they already paid it off and they had a wonderful time on vacation. So those things are also important to write them down and make them happen. And Ronny mentioned 401k. I just know a lot of people during crisis are like, okay, well, let me cut that one. Let me cut that automatic transfer over there because I need a little extra money for something fun, right? Make those things a priority too, because they do see really far. At least for me, retirement seems a little bit far. But if I don't build it up now, it's not going to be there. So again, set up your priorities. Make sure you also set up a vacation account, because I bet you we all like vacations, and there's a lot less stress if you have the money to pay for those vacations than putting it on a credit card. And I've seen many Gallup associates enjoying their life without debt. And that's one thing that makes me happy every day, and that makes what I do, the best thing that I can have, the best job ever, really.
Maria, you mentioned this, Ronny. I want to throw this question to you. We're in the middle of a financial crisis here, global, right? And it's changed some habits. It's changed some habits for me. I'll admit I've cut back out of necessity on some things that I was doing automatically before that I'm no longer doing. Ronny, how do I get back? So as things start recovering and hopefully things begin to come back for people, what's your advice to get those things restarted? What do I need to do? What do I need to be thinking about? What should coaches be thinking about for the folks they're working with to say, okay, so you had discipline, you had these things going. How do we get them back? Because sometimes that's just as hard, stopping those habits. And I stopped them for a good reason. How do I get them restarted again? Any thought or advice on that?
Yeah, for sure. You're right. That is a tremendous challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Momentum, inertia is such a powerful force in the financial world. We tend to just continue doing what we've been doing. And if we've been we shut off our 401k contribution or our retirement plan contribution, whatever it might have been. Starting it back up, see, it feels like an impossible hill to climb. So don't, maybe you were contributing 10% before. Don't do 4 and increase it 2% every year. You're not going to feel 2%. Okay, you might, but barely, right? But in 3 more years, you'll be back to where you were contributing 10%. Little things that tend to trick our mind into not feeling the pain as much, they really do work. And so, taking those little minor steps back to where we know we need to be to accomplish our long-term goal once things recover. If we're sitting in a tough spot where income is really dried up, then I totally understand. You have to keep the lights on and food on the table, and you have to cover your major priorities first, and everything else is secondary and may not happen. But once it does come back, and it will, then just move into it gently.
Yeah, that's great advice, Maria. From a practical standpoint on your end, as you're advising, we're all in this boat. As you're advising, as we're coming back, any other advice you'd give to individuals? That's how we get back on track.
Yes, continue to think on your future and don't stop those contributions like HSA contributions, because that's for your health savings account. If you ever have an emergency, you have it there. It's pre-tax money, right? So take advantage of those things. And like Ronny said, don't act, from panic and stop everything unless you really need to, because it'll continue to build up by itself. It's automatic. It'll be there for your retirement. It's automatic. And it'll be there for your emergency, any medical emergency. So just kind of those things. Just think about the future, because really finances are part of our everyday life. So think about it. Take care of your finances. Review them all. And that's pretty much my advice.
Yeah. And kind of what I hear both of you saying is try to make it fun. Like, this is a tough subject. People say, what do you never talk about religion or politics when you're like, I think finances should be added to that triplet, right? Because this is particularly hard, especially in relationships. Like, the deeper the relationships, sometimes the harder it is to talk about this. Ronny, you said something, and I'm going to go a little bit off script, so I'm going to catch you guys maybe off guard a little bit. But I think in our Wellbeing book, we talk about spending money on experiences as opposed to things. Ronny, can you just briefly talk a little bit? What do we mean by that, and what's the value there?
Yeah, exactly. Buying experiences instead of just material things is one of the 3 major takeaways from the financial well-being section. I feel like what we mean by that is that those buying of experiences can mean a lot of things to different people. For some people, that's traveling or vacations, but for some people, it's giving to something that's important to them, or bringing family members together in a way that it costs them money to do it, but they're spending it on things that they know they're going to remember this experience, and they do. They're not going to remember that thing they bought, that material thing that they bought in a month from now. But in some cases, decades from now, they remember people that were there and where they were at, and the experiences that they shared with those individuals. And so we try to encourage people to prioritize those things. It may be for, like Maria mentioned, by doing it through a vacation savings account, or it can be a savings account that you label it whatever you'd like. Literally put a name on it. I'm saving for, I don't know, what are some of the names of the different savings accounts you've seen people give, Maria, in the past? I've seen Disney.
Yep. Hawaii is a common one.
Hawaii. Yeah. So those are travel related, but some of them aren't travel. Some of them are very specific to the individual.
I have my checking account at Gallup is just called my tech fund. That's the name of it in the account. And that's what I use, that's separate from the family account. And anything that I earn podcasting or whatever about technology goes into that account. And then I know when it's gone, it's gone. Like, I can only spend, by the way, I'm a spender. Like, I struggle with some of these things because both Sarah and I are kind of spenders in our relationship. We love to spend money. And so we have to trick ourselves into saving it. And the best thing I ever did was start a Christmas account. Like it wasn't until I was on the board of the credit union. I'm like, okay, you guys talked about this. I'm like, I've got to do this.
Yeah.
Christmas was killing me. I was actually getting depressed because I couldn't give as much as I wanted to during the Christmas season. I get angry about it.
Yeah.
And man, setting up that Christmas account totally changed my well-being. Now I go into November kind of looking for, I got this cash that I can kind of throw at all these things, or at least give to Sarah to throw at all these things. Let's just be really honest on that one. And it just totally changed my well-being. Maria, anything else you want to add in that area as we think about removing that future stress?
Well, you don't have to be a financial expert. So like I been in the banking world for about 7-8 years, and I've only started leaving with a budget for 5 years, and it has changed my financial well-being life, but not just financial well-being, even physical well-being, because it has released so much extra stress. And my husband and I have come to an agreement. This is what we're doing. But there's a lot of people that are not in a relationship, right? They're single. How did you coach them to take care of their financial well-being? Maybe bring up a friend, right? Just say it out loud. I'm going to start saving to go to Hawaii. I'm going to start saving to give money to charity, right? Just be intentional about it. I just feel like sometimes even having a relationship can bring a little bit more conflict, because when there's only one, it's just you make your decisions, you make your budget, and it goes really smooth. But just saving for the future is always a key thing.
Quick question from the chat room and then two really good comments. Heather says, I love spending on experiences, but I have a hard time spending money on things. That's why I have very little furniture. Any thoughts on how to plan to pull the trigger on physical things? And I kind of know where Heather's at. I'm bad at like spending like the big purchases, like like a car. I'll just think about that forever. And I need to do it, right? It's a weird, weird's not the right answer. It's a different problem than we expect from people. But Ronny, when you think about having trouble pulling that trigger on physical things when you need to buy them, it's not a matter of want or overbuying. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think, and there's probably a threshold for the dollar amount of item we're talking about, but I feel like creating a short list of those significant things. Maybe it's an experience, vacation, maybe it's a couch, maybe it's, you fill in the blank. Creating that list with a dollar amount beside each one, approximately what that cost would be, and then prioritizing the list. What's most important to me? And if couch is at the bottom, that's great. I don't care. I mean, if that's where it should be, if it's your lowest priority item. But I feel like at least taking a look at them collectively is very beneficial. So then we can start to assign, well, how much would I need to actually save toward that goal, and when could I get there? And I that's a really simple Excel formula if you're an Excel person, to do that math, and that's why I love it. It keeps it top of mind, and then when your life changes and you need to take something off the list or add something else, it's right there.
Yeah. A couple quick comments back to the experiences idea. Justin says we quickly reach saturation in life for material things and needs and to have in our homes, but there's an endless space for experiences, right? In those, and that time spent doing that. And then Lisa makes a good comment. She just says, for me, shopping can be an experience, right? Yeah. It can be about possibility. If the store is a good salespeople, it's a learner experience. I don't necessarily buy a lot, right? I mean, so this is what we want to get you thinking, right? Certainly when we think about financial well-being, the resources we have available, whether that be money or whatever that looks like in the environment that you're in, that's the bottom. We got some things we got to do right here, but it's really about what does that do for us? I think this is as we think about wrapping this, what does that do for us in our state of mind, in our well-being? Is it stressing us out? Is it causing us worry? Is it keeping us awake at night? Is it causing conflict in relationships? Is it stopping us from thriving? Is it causing us to suffer, regardless of what that is. I think we have to kind of think through that from our time and treasure, because certainly time can be a resource, right? Where we spend our time. I think Larry Briquette, who is a financial planner for a lot of years in the Christian space, says where your treasure is, your heart is also. Right. And so there's an opportunity, like what are we emphasizing here? And is it causing us fulfillment? Are we getting fulfillment out of it? Are we thriving and not suffering? Ronny, I'm going to go to you first, then Maria, you next. Any final thoughts on this as we kind of bring this in for a close?
Yeah, I think it's so simple yet so complicated because human beings are involved, right? But if you think through those major objectives of, increasing my peace of mind, building hope, and reducing stress, even if you're thinking through some of the recommendations we made on here, just pick one or two. One that will increase your peace of mind, reduce your stress, or help you build hope. Pick one or two of them and start to implement those, or give coaching assistance around those areas where it's going to make that type of impact for a client. And don't overcomplicate it. That's how you eat the elephant, right? One bite at a time.
That's right.
And so, just like Maria did 5 years ago, started doing it and built it into a habit. That's how we all do it.
Yeah. And Ronny, I love those 3 principles. Instead of saying, oh, it's about a budget, or, oh, it's about a spending plan, or, oh, it's about creating an emergency fund. When we talk about that idea of hope, we think about reducing stress, right? I mean, those are things people can really kind of grab onto and understand. The mechanics of how you do it are going to be different for everybody.
Right.
But those 3 points are great. Maria, what else would you add? Anything else as we close this up?
Yeah, just don't forget to mention financial well-being. And again, they're in that strength discovery journey that they're going to listen to every single word that you're saying. So just mention it out and let's be financially successful.
Yeah, you had an experience like that yourself, right? You just recently were coached, and one of our coaches said, hey, you should look at this. And you were like, whoa, this is great, right? They're listening, right?
Totally. You're absolutely listening. And those coaches out there are making an impact and changing lives every single day. I have great admiration for everybody. Super talented. And I mean, it has been the greatest discovery of my life. Not the financial well-being piece, Ronny. Sorry to disappoint you. But CliftonStrengths has been, because it has changed my life. I mean, I intentionally use my strengths every single day. I pack them to work every single day. I intentionally use them for my financial well-being, social well-being, for every single aspect of my life. But that's because I listen to my coach, right? I listen to my coach and then now take action. And yes, financial topic is not an easy one, because sometimes we have to cut on things that we really enjoy, but we have to set those priorities in order to save for the future, in order to have those super fun experiences, because they're expensive, but they're totally worth it because you're spending time with your family, right? So just have fun with it. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Bring it up on your conversations, and I assure you that your clients are going to love you because you're changing their lives.
Good job, Maria.
I don't think we can say it any better than that, just to be honest. Maria, thanks for your genuineness, by the way, in that. And just, it's great to work with you. I look forward to a day we get to see each other a little bit more often. I pop into the credit union whenever I can. It's one of my favorite places to hang. It actually makes me feel good to be in there, to know like this is a healthy place to be. So thanks to the both of you. Ronny, thanks for doing such a great job managing it for all the years that you managed it. And we look forward to many more years to come as well. You guys hang tight for me 1 second. With that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available, including that article that we'll post both in the show notes. I've been posting it in the chat room as well around this. We've got quite a bit we've written on financial well-being on Gallup.com. So head out there, just search financial well-being, and there's lots of great topics around that you can get more information on, including this webcast. This may be the first financial well-being webcast we've done on Called the Coach. I think, I'm not sure if we've ever talked about this before. So we'll have to do more. Well, we'll get feedback from you. Send us an email. If you enjoyed it, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Maybe, Ronnie, we should do more around this topic.
I would love to. I bet Maria would too.
Yeah, it would be great. And we listen to Gallup. We have the advantage of having you guys. Not everybody does. But finding a great financial institution that cares about you as an individual more than you as an account number is very, very helpful. If you want to join us for these programs coming up, I mentioned Career Wellbeing is next, and that'll be in about a month or so. You can follow us on our Eventbrite page, gallup.eventbrite.com. Just follow us there. You'll get a notification when I post that. I'll be posting that in the next couple of days here. You can also join us in our Facebook group and know everything that's going on, facebook.com/group/called-to-coach. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Maybe you're not a Facebooker, and that's okay if you're not. It's a crazy place right now. You can go out to LinkedIn and search CliftonStrengths trained coaches and get there as well. If you're listening live, thanks for joining us. Some great comments out in the chat room, and it's always best live. So if you have never joined us live, come out and do one of these. Thanks to the chat room that is out there. And if you found this helpful, please share it. We'd actually encourage, grab the link, share the podcast, share the YouTube, whatever. I think there may be some folks that you know that may need to hear what we said today. So we appreciate you doing that as well. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.